You're watching Euronews now. I'm Rome Zaidi, and these are the headlines this hour. Rescue operations resume in Mariupol to get more people out of the Azovstal steelworks despite sustained Russian attacks. President Zelensky says conditions in the city are an example of torture. Prime Minister Viktor Orban says Hungary won't support an EU ban on Russian oil, saying the embargo would be like dropping an atomic bomb on the economy.
Here in the Cube, we look at the latest online misinformation that falsely claims Finland is sending tanks towards its eastern border with Russia.
A tough night for the Tories as Labour makes significant gains in local elections across the UK. But it could be the Liberal Democrats that cause the biggest headache for Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Good evening. Rescue operations have resumed in Mariupol as more civilians flee Ukraine's besieged port city despite sustained Russian attacks. The UN and Red Cross claim that around 500 people have been rescued from the southeastern city and that safe passage operations are ongoing. Evacuation teams are working to save civilians trapped in the Azovstal steel plant, Ukraine's last stronghold in the city. But intelligence reports suggest that Russian troops are continuing their assault on the site. In a video addressed to a UK foreign policy think tank, President Volodymyr Zelensky described conditions in Mariupol as an example of torture.
So death is not caused by war. This is not a military event. This is torturing to death. This is terrorism and hatred. Mariupol will never fall. I'm not talking about heroism, the fighters, or the army that we have. But there is nothing there to fall apart. It's already devastated. There is no place. There is no structure. It's all destroyed completely.
Following the latest developments in Ukraine, our correspondent Sasha Vakulina told us that Russian Victory Day celebrations approach. Vladimir Putin is desperate to capture the Azovstal steel plant to serve as a token of his military success.
The third United Nations operation was underway today on Friday to evacuate Ukrainian civilians from Azovstal, but up to 200 civilians still believed to be remaining there in Azovstal, together with Ukrainian defenders who are still, of course, there at the steelworks. According to RIA Novosti, this is Russia state-owned media, 12 civilians left Azovstal. But since it is reported by Russian state media, the questions are where exactly were they taken and evacuated, whether they went through the humanitarian corridor from Mariupol through Berdyansk to Zaporizhia. The heavy shelling and the attacks and the storming at the Azovstal continues. This is confirmed by the Institute for the Study of War and also by the UK Defence Ministry and their intelligence update. And the renewed effort by Russia to secure Azovstal and complete the capture of Mariupol is also likely linked to the upcoming Victory Day, the 9th of May in Russia, all the commemorations and Putin's desire to have sort of a symbolic success for that day.
Meanwhile, the EU looks poised to amend its proposal to ban Russian oil imports amid pressure from disgruntled member states. Reports suggest that Brussels will tweak its embargo plans to allow for Hungary, Slovakia and the Czech Republic to purchase Russian oil beyond 2022. But amid energy crisis fears, some leaders say that is not enough, as Shona Murray reports.
Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban has raised the stakes in relation to the EU's sixth sanctions package on Russia. The European Commission is proposing a full embargo and phasing out of Russian oil. But Hungary, despite being among three countries offered a much longer transition period until the end of 2024, is threatening to veto the whole package.
Russian or any kind of oil can only come to Hungary by pipeline. One end of the pipeline is in Russia and the other one is in Hungary. It's an endowment. We cannot accept a proposal that ignores this circumstance. This proposal in its current form is like an atomic bomb dropped on the Hungarian economy.
In an interview with the Hungary's national broadcaster, Viktor Orban warned that cutting Russian oil would need a complete change of the energy system, which he says would take 5 years and billions of euro. But the EU's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, has warned him not to connect sanction policies with the issue of recovery funds, which Hungary has not received due to its breaches of EU law.
We heard Viktor Orban was on the radio this morning, the Hungarian Prime Minister, comparing this sanction package to an atomic bomb.
Atomic bomb?
Yes. So what would you say to him?
one can discuss about how many years do you need in order to adapt to an oil embargo. But to link the oil embargo with something else that has nothing to do with it, as the delivering of funding of the next generation apart from the political reasons, this is unacceptable.
Hungary's part of the European recovery funds are currently frozen by the European Commission because of alleged high levels of corruption by the Hungarian government. Representatives of the EU member states are going to continue discussing the new round of sanctions over the weekend. Shona Murray, Euronews, Brussels.
Lviv has become a hub for people internally displaced from the war. But the city is struggling to provide proper accommodation for the numbers arriving daily. One charity is working to try and transform disused buildings and turn them into homes. Anna Pashenka, the co-founder of Kohathi, explained earlier what the organisation is doing. Take a look.
I represent the initiative Kohathi. So Ko stands for collective and Hati is a Ukrainian name for a house. And when you put these two words together, Kohathi means love in Ukrainian. So we are really aiming to deliver homes for those who lost it with love, with dignity. So we are struggling to build a proper accommodation, proper conditions, integrate people in the Western Ukraine. So there are millions of people who flee the war and they are in the Western Ukraine, but there are also millions of people who stay in Kharkiv, in Mariupol, in Donetsk, in Luhansk and eastern territories which are being bombed. So it is a very big tragedy and they cannot move from there and they cannot make this decision to move to the Western Ukraine because they are not sure if they will be able to find a place where they could live. So we are really we really want to deliver a bigger amount of homes for those who are in a very unsafe position now.
It's definitely a lovely initiative. But given, of course, the volumes of arrivals into Lviv, are you also looking to provide housing in perhaps smaller towns to make housing a lot more sustainable, perhaps?
Yeah, so basically what is happening in Ukraine that the bigger sources go through bigger cities and organizations, and this is a bottleneck in Ukraine now, and this is really important that the help, that support, housing, financial support goes as distributed as possible. So we really want to provide this housing in smaller cities in the Western Ukraine, Ivano-Frankivsk, Kalush, Kamenets-Podilsky. So they are capable to work with that now because Lviv, for example, is really overwhelmed with IDPs and with a lot of tasks. So this is our strategy for now. That we so what we've done now. So we've done our pilot project in Ivano-Frankivsk. So this is a dormitory we were able to renovate within few weeks with hundreds of volunteers who are IDPs. And so now there is a space to live for 200 people.
Over now to the UK, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says it was a tough night for the Conservatives as his party lost control of key London councils in the UK local elections. In a shock result, the Labour Party swept a victory in Wandsworth, a long-held Conservative stronghold in the capital. Labour leader Keir Starmer called the election a big turning point as he celebrated his party's win in Barnet. The biggest winners look to be the Liberal Democrats, who have secured at least 190 more council seats. Meanwhile, the first counts for Northern Ireland's General Assembly election are in. Sinn Féin's leader in the north, Michelle O'Neill, secured her seat in West Belfast. The party are poised to take an overall victory. It would be the first time an Irish Nationalist Party wins a majority in Stormont. But Northern Ireland's largest unionist party, the DUP, are threatening to boycott the Assembly if Sinn Féin are in power. DUP leader Geoffrey Donaldson retained his seat in Lagan Valley. Earlier I spoke with our reporter Ken Murray and he told me about the historical significance of this election. Take a look.
This is a pivotal moment in the history of Northern Ireland. What you must understand is that the British government divided Ireland in 1921 simply because the majority of people in the north of Ireland are Protestant, they are Unionist, their loyalty is to the Crown in London. And from the 1920s up until recently, Protestants were in the majority, but the gap between the number of Protestants in Northern Ireland and the number of Catholics has narrowed significantly to a point where we're almost at a point now where the number of pro-Irish unity Catholics is on the verge of surpassing the number of Protestants. So a lot of people in the Protestant Unionist community never thought this moment would arrive, and over the coming days, as the votes in this Assembly election are counted, it's 99.9% certain that the pro-Irish Unification Party, Sinn Féin, is going to surpass the largest Unionist Protestant bloc in the Northern Ireland Assembly for the first time in 100 years. So this is a very significant and pivotal moment in the history of Ireland.
Indeed. And Ken, Naomi Long with the Alliance Party is calling for an end to green and orange politics. Are we seeing the centre ground having more of a say, perhaps, in the country's future?
Well, at face value, they're not having so much more of a say, but their voice is being heard a little bit clearer. What's happened is that the Alliance Party, which makes up the centre ground, it's a party between, if you like, the Green side, which is the pro-Irish unification side on one side, and then you have the orange side. You have the Alliance Party in the middle, and it represents, if you like, middle-class people from both sides, and their view is that the bickering that has gone on between Green and Orange over the future of Northern Ireland over the last 100 years, it's gone on too long. And it's attracting a lot of young voters, many of whom were born after the Troubles ended in 1994. So their younger vote takes the view that Northern Ireland is a normal society, even though they would not have lived through the Troubles and would have understood the rancour and the loss of life and the division and bitterness those Troubles created between 1969 and 1994. So what we've seen is in the 27 Assembly election in Northern Ireland and this one, the number of votes and seats going to the Alliance Party is growing. And even though, as I say, that the Alliance Party has very little say in the running of Northern Ireland because the Assembly and the administration will be made up of the two largest blocs, the pro-unification Sinn Féin on one side and the pro-British DUP on the other side, the Alliance Party's support is growing, but it's sending out a signal that more and more people are turning to them because they're fed up with the status quo.